Hey everyone, welcome to the Indie Edit. In this AVID series, we're going to go over the basics of processing dailies for an actual independent feature film. From project creation all the way through syncing via timecode, we're going to touch on as many little things as we can to get your project up and off the ground as quick as possible. Now, project creation, it's usually quite simple, right? Well, in AVID, it actually is pretty simple. However, there are a few do's and don'ts that you should be aware of while setting a project up for the first time. We're also going to look at importing a custom folder structure to get things moving a little bit quicker. So let's get started. So at AVID Startup, this is the screen that we are shown. Up top, we have our user profile drop-down menu. If you are working on a shared computer, just make sure that this is set to your user profile before continuing. However, you can always change this inside of your AVID project. Next is location. If you ever open up your AVID and don't see any projects or your project listed, this is the first place to check. This menu points AVID to where your project directory is located. The Media Central login down below is not really used in indie scripted productions too often, and in this case, we're going to just ignore it. It is largely used for database management in the sports and broadcast spaces. So now let's create our project. For our name, we'll title it TIE_200 Dailies Management, TIE standing for, you guessed it, the Indie Edit. Now the first window that we're going to take a look at is Format. In AVID, format is quite important, especially at the start of the project. If you're coming from more of a Premiere background, you'll be aware that you can change your project format at more of a sequence level. With AVID, however, you do have to set your format at project creation, and the only thing that you can change after the fact is resolution. So your frame rate is actually going to be stuck at whatever you picked during this project creation. For our project, we're going to go ahead and select 1080p at 23.976 frames per second, as that is what our dailies footage was recorded at. The film checkbox is a neat little function that I always recommend turning on. There's no downside, however, to leaving this unchecked. Once checked, set it to 35mm for perf. What this does is it allows your AVID to slip audio in quarter frame segments. If you picture a literal piece of film, you'll notice the notches on the edges of it. That is what your AVID is emulating when this box is checked. The main use for this function is to slip your dialogue audio at quarter frame increments, in cases where the audio appears to be ever so subtly off. I don't use it often while editing, but this function is good to know about and have active on all projects. Next up is color space, and for 99% of all indie features, you'll just want to keep this at YCBCR 709. This dropdown will affect how AVID displays your footage, so unless instructed to do so from your DIT, Dailies House, or colorist, just leave this at YCBCR 709. The stereoscopic menu has to deal with 3D footage, and for now, we'll set this to off, unless you're working on the next avatar, that is. Next up is the search data folder, which we're just going to leave as default. AVID has an extremely powerful search function. It indexes every single file within the AVID Media database, so that when you go to search for, let's say, thunderstorms, it pulls up every instance of that word immediately. This folder is set here by default, and it's what makes it possible. And now let's hit Create. Inside, you'll notice a blank project, except for a bin. So let's import our starting folder structure. To do so, go to the Dropbox download link below in the video description. Download and unzip the folder structure template provided, which is what I use to start all of my feature films. From there, locate your AVID project through Finder in Mac or Windows Explorer on Windows. From earlier, wherever you set your project location to be is where you'll find where your project lives. What we're going to do is simply copy the folders into the AVID project folder. When we jump back to AVID, a quick save of the project will pop everything inside. A brief heads up, a decent amount of functions in AVID that we will be handling are directly done so through the operating system, with this being one of those. And from here, our project is set up. So head on over to the next video, where we're going to ingest our audio wave media as well as our AVID MXF files into Media Composer using two separate methods. We're also going to take a brief look at how to organize the MXF database as we go. We'll see you there.